Round 9 started in WA with the Fremantle Dockers taking on Hawthorn. It was going to be a really tough game coming into this one, both teams being at the top of the ladder. It was really interesting to see which team was going to show who was better than the other. For the most part, it was Hawthorn. They really had most control of this game, really kind of having much of a 2-goal lead for the entirety of the match, until Fremantle kind of battled back in the second half. It was pretty even in the first quarter, both sides kicking 4 goals, and then the Hawks having a 5-goal second quarter, which really got them the advantage going through that middle part of the game. They continued that lead in the second half, albeit only kicking 2 goals in that second half. They still had a 3-goal lead at three-quarter time, which people probably thought was going to be enough in the end, but Fremantle really surged after three-quarter time. They kicked 5 goals to 1 and really got on top in the middle. They had 12 clearances to Hawthorn's 4, led by Luke Jackson and Shai Bolton, and it led to goals like this from Jai Amos. They were just relentless, and they got a massive win, and it's going to serve them well come the end of the season. The first game of Friday's doubleheaders was Brisbane up against Carlton at the Gabba. It took 15 minutes into the first quarter for us to see the first goal in this game, and it was Brisbane that jumped to an early lead, leading by over 6 goals at half-time. The Ashcroft brothers linked up with some nice play and got some classy goals, including this one from Levi Ashcroft. But it was Carlton in the third quarter that surged late, kicking 5 goals in a row to bring it back to within 20 points. They pushed hard in the fourth quarter and got close, but in the end, it wasn't enough. Harry Mackay was the star for Carlton in the second half, kicking 3 goals, but still, they couldn't get the job done as Michael Voss looks for that win they keep searching for. So for Brisbane, they play in the grand final rematch next week in a huge game against the Cats. It was the Bulldogs in the 2-point thriller at Adelaide Oval, where they kicked 6 goals in the opening quarter, and Port Adelaide really struggled to move the footy. The Dogs had over 79% time in forward 50 in the first quarter, and it looked like it was going to be a drubbing for the Doggies. But once Port Adelaide was able to open up the corridor and get their ball movement going, that's when they really started to score and bring the game back to an even contest. The Dogs really struggled after half-time, only kicking 1 goal after kicking 9 in the first half. Port Adelaide really tried to stay in this game, but it was their inaccuracy in the end is what cost them, and really stupid skill errors, kicking the ball out of defence and turning it over and drop marks, and really just keeping the door open for the Dogs to just take this game whenever they wanted. Georgiades kicked 4 goals, but also had 4 behinds as well, and they really just struggled to put it on the scoreboard when it mattered, and it's a win for the Dogs that you'll happily take and you move on to next week. It was the Kangaroos almost pulling off a miracle against the top of the table Sydney Swans. A brilliant effort from North Melbourne's leaders to really stand up early in this contest. Luke Davies-Uniacke started the game on fire with leather poisoning. He just got the footy everywhere. He was doing everything for the Kangas, and they kicked 6 goals in the first quarter, and they really hung in there until the very end. But it was Sydney's conversion in front of goal that won them this game. They had contributors all over the board, with McDonald, Heaney and McLean all kicking 3 goals each, while for the Kangaroos, Larkey struggled to get on the scoreboard with Jack Darling leading them in the goal kickers. For the Swans, they move on to the Pies at the SCG in what should be a big game, and for the Kangaroos, they sit back and learn from this game and hope to improve for next week. And now to GWS versus Essendon. And to be honest with you guys, I fell asleep during this game. I really had no interest in watching 2 mid-teams go at it. But I ended up watching the highlights back. And from what I've seen, the Bombers are slowly, yes, very slowly, improving. And I think it's due to the fact that Brad Scott's kind of caved in and is really starting to play some of the young guys now. Sullivan Roby looks really good. Jacob Farrow some of their high draft picks are really showing a bit of promise, and getting Nick Bryan back for his first game really helped in the ruck, with Peter Wright in there chopping him too. It allows Lockie Blackiston to kind of slot behind the ball and give an extra tool down there, and they were kind of competitive for most of this game, and Archie Roberts kind of continues that insane form that he's in. He's getting a lot of the footy, and I think it might be his third or fourth game with 40 disposals, which is kind of mental. But yeah, not really much to say about this game, but yeah, well done to the Giants. It was the Gold Coast Suns who picked up a really important win over the Saints up in Darwin. The Suns trailed 32-7 at quarter time, and it looked like the Saints were going to pull off a victory because the Suns are undefeated in Darwin and people weren't really expecting much from the Saints up here. But a second quarter blitz from the Gold Coast Suns opened this game right open. They kicked 6 goals 3 to St Kilda's 4 behinds, and that really told the story for the second half, with the Saints kicking 6 behinds and only 3 goals in the second half, to the Suns piling on 7 goals, and it really showed the Suns are a better team this year and are really going to push to make a deeper run in September compared to last year. Johnny Noble continued his great form, having 31 touches and a goal, and really showed to be a great pickup for the Suns, while their captain Noah Anderson had 31, Touk Miller also had 31 and a goal. Bodie Hewlin continued to start, and the Suns came away with the 4 points. It was the Cats picking up a massive win against Collingwood at the MCG in what was Scott Pendlebury's record-breaking game, where he tied Brent Harvey for the most games played ever by an AFL player. It was the Cats in Tom Stewart's 200th, where they got the job done. Bailey Smith was best on ground with a star making 40 disposals. He had 14 score involvements from those 40 possessions and 3 direct goal assists. But it was O'Shane Mullen that was the talking point from this game for his incredible job on Collingwood superstar Nick Dacos. He held Dacos to 54 disposal efficiency and also picked up 21 possessions of his own, had more clearances than Nick, and had 9 score involvements himself. He continues to improve into being a massive star, and is going to be a huge talking point for the Cats this year when it comes to their best improvers. He's become an absolute star for the club, and I'm really excited to see where he goes later this year. For the Cats, they have a grand final rematch against Brisbane, while the Pies go up to Sydney for a tough game with the Swans. The D's picked up an easy win against the Eagles. The Crows picked up a pretty tough win against the Tigers. It was very hard fought, and it was a pretty poor performance from the Crows in the end. They travelled up to Melbourne to play a 1-8 Richmond side. Wayne Miller continued his form and potentially looks like an All-Australian half-back, potentially 34 disposals. He's been one of their biggest improvers this year. Isaac Rankin back to his best, having 33 and a goal. Geordie Dawson back, having 29 and a goal. And it was just a pretty average performance, really, for the Crows. You take the 4 points, but nothing too special from this game, really. And, yeah, that's pretty much all from this game. And to round out the video, we've got our tips for round 10. I think the Cats pull up an upset in the Gabba by 11 points against the Lions. I think the Swans get the job done pretty easily against Collingwood. The Suns up in Darwin against the Power. I think they get the win there. Crows to get the win just against North. Hawks to beat the D's. I think Carlton with an upset over the Bulldogs. I've got Fremantle to beat Essendon, St Kilda against Richmond, and GWS to beat West Coast. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you for the love and support, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.